Good morning. Blessed new moon to those observing today. It is the 8th new moon. We just got through with the Feast of Tabernacles in the 7th month. And so last evening at sundown began the 8th new moon. It's a new month. First day of the month is always on the new moon. I used to not know about the new moon, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that this morning. Back in 1998 is when I discovered about the new moon, late 1998, probably around this time of the year, into the winter. And all that happened was I had been reading the Bible. I kept the Sabbath day, and I had been reading in the Bible how that the new moon would often be mentioned with the Sabbath day. And so I asked my father-in-law while we were driving up north to a trip where he was going to teach the Bible. I asked him why we did not honor or observe or celebrate in some fashion the new moon as a holy day to Yahweh. And I just shared with him a few verses. And back then, before we had these iPhones and Samsungs and all this technology, he had a little Franklin Bible computer. I remember I bought one from the Christian bookstore, and you could punch in a word, and it would pull up every place in the Bible that the word was used. I think it was keyed to the King James Version. And so he punched in new moon, and then we just began to look at all the places that mentioned the new moon. But there were three in particular that got me, and I wanted to share them with you this morning. I believe the new moon is a holy day. The first day of the month is a holy day. It is a set-apart day. It's not as strict as the weekly Sabbath, but it is a day on which there is worship, where you congregate with the believers. I believe that it's a day that you refrain from commercial employment, gainful employment. I don't think that it's wrong to work necessarily on the new moon, around your house or things like that, but I think that the Israelites would refrain from gainful activity, commercial activity. So the new moon is determined by the lunar cycle. It's the first day of the lunar cycle, and I think the conjunction of the moon came in yesterday around 3:30 p.m. roughly here in our locale, and so the sundown after conjunction, that'll begin the first complete day inside of the rebuilding period. New moon is the Hebrew word chodesh. It means to rebuild. So last night at sundown began the first complete day inside of the rebuilding period. And so that makes today New Moon Day. And very quickly, I just want to give you three verses, and then you have the technology at your fingertips to go and look up every place that the Bible mentions new moon. One of the first places is Isaiah 66. I'm just going to go to one of these, maybe a couple, and then we'll let it lay in your studies. So in Isaiah 66, verses 22 through 23, it says, "For just as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, will endure before me," Yahweh's declaration, "so will your offspring and your name endure. All mankind will come to worship me," so there's our worship category, "from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, says Yahweh." So I'd heard Sabbath keepers, Seventh-day Adventists, sacred name people, Torah observant Hebrew roots people, mention this verse for the keeping of the Sabbath as a future reference, in reference to the new heavens and the new earth, which was definitely future from the time that Isaiah gave this prophecy, Yahweh through Isaiah. And so they would say, well, see, the Sabbath day is to be kept. We should keep the Sabbath day. It's a holy time. But the new moon is mentioned right there with the Sabbath as a time of worship. And so if we're going to not ignore the Sabbath because this text talks about a future reference to the Sabbath, then we should not ignore the new moon. There's something to do there with the new moon. The couple of other places, I don't want to take up too much time in these videos, but the couple other places I would like you to look at is Ezekiel 46, Ezekiel chapter 46, verses 1 through 3, where Yahweh distinguishes not only the Sabbath day from the 6 working days, but also the day of the new moon from the 6 working days. He does not categorize the day of the new moon as one of the 6 working days. You have 6 working days, you have your Sabbaths, and then you have your new moons. And then the third place, one of the first places I ever found, was Amos chapter 8, verse 5. And you can read the whole context in that chapter. But there were some greedy traders of the land that were asking, when is the new moon going to be over with so that we can continue to sell dishonestly? And that's because the Israelites were not buying any grain from them on the new moon or the Sabbath. And the greedy traders were saying, man, I'll be glad when these days get over with so we can go back to practicing our dishonest gain. And I got to thinking, well, why can't they sell this to the Israelites on the new moon? It must be because they're not buying it on the new moon or on the Sabbath day. So Isaiah 66, Ezekiel 46, and Amos 8 are the first 3 verses that got my attention back in 1998. If my memory serves me right, the new moon is mentioned over 60 times in the Bible, including once in the New Testament in Colossians chapter 2. And I would encourage you to do a study on the new moon for yourself and see whether or not you find that the Scriptures teach, Yahweh teaches through His Scriptures, to honor the new moon as a holy day. I've been doing that now for almost 20 years, since late 1998. We have honored the new moon. It's a day that we do not go off to do our jobs. We have a holy convocation. It's kind of one brother called it a soft Sabbath, and I like that because it's not as strict. We cook on the new moon, we do laundry. Sometimes if I have something to do here around the house, I'll take care of that. But I don't go out for gainful employment, and we make sure that we have a holy convocation, a worship time on the new moon. And so we're going to be with our congregation here in just a little while. And I think we'll have it on Facebook Live this evening for our new moon worship service. And so you can join us there. I'll post about that here in a little bit. Just wanted to share that with you this morning. I'm going to finish my hot tea and read some scriptures here in Leviticus. And I hope you have a blessed day. Have a great one. Thanks for listening.